see, it's just one size door. It's maybe a foot by a foot. So if we gather too much glass, we're going to end up with a square gather instead of a very nice round gather. So we don't really like that too much. We try to keep everything nice and round. Glass naturally wants to be round because we're always turning the iron. That centripetal force is keeping it nice and round. Just like the Earth is spinning, we're round, exactly. But that's why we always have to turn the iron, because the glass is at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's why it's glowing that bright yellowish orange as we work with it. It's just so hot, it's emitting its own radiant light. So when Jamie goes back in, you can see, you can't really see anything inside that furnace. You can't even tell where the glass is at. But the glass sits inside of a big ceramic pot called a crucible, and Jamie can dip the head of the iron below the surface of the glass and turn in one direction and spool on that gather. John, I want to see if we can play that video for our guests, and they can get a really nice little cutout view of how the furnace works for you. So you can see the glass sits in a big little honey pot. We can just go right in. We have to turn in one direction in order to spool that gather on. Then we could take that gather out of the furnace and shut the door. Just like that. I love that little video. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it. We love that video because it really gives you a better understanding of how the glass sits on the inside of the furnace. I've had people come up to me and think it was like a cement mixer on the inside, and that we just stick the iron in and we magically get out the right amount that we want. I've heard a lot of crazy stories, but that's how we do it. So they're going to get together and work just a little bit more and pull the last color of cane that we need. Heather already made the green cane that we have sitting in this color tray. And then we have the orange already pulled as well. Enon was working on chopping that up to the right length. And then we have our beautiful purple. It looks kind of pink right now, but it will cool down and be a little bit more of a violet-y tone. So they'll go through the process again, stuff the cup that's on the end of Heather's iron, and then they'll stretch it one more time. And then I'll be able to get started on my project. And by the time I get started, I think I'll be trading the mic off with Heather so she can talk with you all a little bit about how a cane roll-up works, how we're going to get all of that nice color pattern on the surface of the glass. But yeah, I'll come back in and I'll help you all out. If you have more questions throughout the day, please feel free to ask. We'll get back to the normal scheduled, normal pace shows come this afternoon, and we'll be making more pieces of glass. We typically do quicker shows throughout the day, anywhere between 20 to 25 minutes, and you'll see a variety of objects being made throughout the day. So Jamie will break that cup off. Enon has a pair of Kevlar gloves that he's using to hold on to the glass and hold it into place. And he's stuffed it into a little optic mold. It's a big cup that will hold our pink cup for us, or our purple cup. There we go. And we can stuff that glass on the inside. And now we can fuse it, melt it all in together, and then stretch it. Now we heat our furnaces here with natural gas and forced air. It's very atypical for a hot shop. We do have our innovation stage though, and that is all electric. So that's pretty rare for hot shops. There's only 5 fully functioning electric hot shops in the whole world, and Corning happens to have all of them. We just received the patent for it last year. So we're really proud of that. We put our heads together with some of the world's best glass equipment fabricators, and they work together with us. And we're really happy. It was Steve Gibbs and Fred Metz. They got awarded the achievement of creating the electric hot shop. So you'll notice a difference in the hot shop, in the noise, or the lack of noise, I should say, in the electric hot shop. It's a really subtle hum. It's hardly even there. But with a natural gas and forced air-fired furnace, whenever I open up this door, the burner kicks off. That way, the hot air isn't bursting in my face. I don't have a quick haircut every time I go and gather glass. But when I shut the door, just wait for it. You hear it kicking back on. It's really subtle. Yeah, there's a lot of equipment right here running, but you can hear the furnace kick back on because it wants to get hot again to reheat the surface of the glass that we just cooled down. We opened up the door. Room temperature air began to spill into the furnace, cooling down the surface of the glass. So we quickly will go and shut the door and allow the burners to come back on, heat everything back up, keep everything nice and juicy. That's how we want it, nice and hot and molten. But be sure to check out the innovation stage today as you walk throughout the museum. It's a beautiful shop. We're really proud of it. And another difference is the amphitheater here that you're sitting in has all this wonderful natural light. It's really fabulous. But then if you go up to the innovation stage, they have large windows and some natural light coming in, but we have these blue lights in there, so it really contrasts the bright orange glow of the furnace. So everything is really illuminated up there. It's really kind of a wonderful show and a wonderful stage to work on at that. Now Heather, sometimes, I'm sure you all have been paying close attention, she'll take this gather of glass that she has and she'll shape it on the marver, that metal table in the center of the stage, but then she'll dip the very tip of the glass in this bucket, just like that. She's cooling down the very tip of the glass for a specific reason. The tip of her gather is the first thing inside this oven, and it's the last thing to leave. So it's absorbing the most amount of heat out of anything else out of that gather. So she cools down the tip. That way, when she stretches it, it won't stretch and get out of control right at the very tip of the glass. So this is all about trust and timing right there. Jamie trusts Heather 100% right there to bring a hot gather of glass up close to her. But of course, we all trust her. Just because Heather's a great glass blower, we are very happy to work with her. Here we go. Get some compressed air out. Yep. And I'm just cooling down this pipe. You can see where the clear began to stretch off just a little bit. I don't want it to pool anymore from the clear or from the iron. I want all that color to stretch. So we can use all of this color in between here and Heather's iron, which is fabulous. Could you get, yeah, you're so good, Enon. There you go, he's ready. Wonderful, ready with the pair of tweezers. That's what we need to cool the glass down and snap it free from these irons. Here you go, babe. There you go. All right, so we have our last color in our 3-colored striped balloon top. Now I'll go ahead and get started on the basket. I'll take the mic off and I'll be working with frit. So Heather's been working with color bar, those solid rods of colored glass, but I'll transition over to frit now, which is crushed up condensed colored glass. It looks like sprinkles you could use on cookies or something like that, but it's just condensed colored glass, crushed up, and it will stick right onto my gather like sprinkles on an ice cream cone. The more I roll through this frit, the denser my color application will become. And then I'll create a really nice basket weave pattern using these optic molds in the very front. So that's what's to come, and then we'll put it all together. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us, and I hope you enjoy your day here at the Corning Museum of Glass.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? Thought I'd come out for a second. Usually it's a little cooler out here, but we actually have air conditioning that shoots onto the stage. Did anyone have any questions? Oh, am I out here walking around? How long have I been blowing glass? I've been blowing glass about 10 years, but time flies when you're having fun, right? Yep. Lauren has also been blowing glass for 10 years. Enon is our intern. How long have you been blowing glass? 4 years. And then we have a whole staff. Jamie's back there. She's been helping. She's been blowing glass for 12, and Laura is another kind of volunteer intern. So Corning Museum of Glass, we don't really train glass blowers, so there is no school here, but we are constantly learning from each other. Most of us found this through college. So BFA, Bachelor's of Fine Arts program, can find glass like most of us do on accident. I wasn't a little girl that said, oh, I want to be a glass blower. I had no clue it was an option, really. So, yeah, and I wound up here. So, it does take about 4 to 6 years in order to make something proficiently. And then past that, you just constantly are gaining more motor skills. So, we're constantly using both of our hands, rolling back and forth down the bench arm, shaping with our right hand. Then when we're walking around, we're actually turning with both of our hands as well. And the tricky part, sometimes it's easier to turn in one direction. You have to train yourself to turn in both directions evenly, otherwise you'll twist the pattern. So what Lauren has done, she's creating the basket on our You Design It, We Make It. Maggie drew a beautiful hot air balloon, and Lauren and I are collaborating. So this is great. I love working here at Corning Museum of Glass because we're all on the same page. We're really working towards the same goal, and collaborating with Lauren like this has been a lot of fun. She has a lot of ideas on how to make the piece, and of course I have my own ways that I suggest to her, but we kind of bounce all these ideas off of each other, and we really are focusing on making the best piece possible for Maggie. So we do have a You Design It, We Make It booth where you can go draw these pictures, and if you come up with a great story, if you have a great drawing, we even pick adults sometimes. So I'm not sure if any adults are interested in that. No? Okay. Would you be interested in that? You Design It, We Make It? Might as well try it, yeah. The more pictures we get, the better. So we have a wide variety to choose from. What Lauren has done, she is creating the basket part of our hot air balloon, and she's rolled through 2 different colors in frit. That frit is the crushed glass, it's just colored glass. And she layered a darker brown on top of a yellow, and she went down into some of our molds on the front of the stage here. These molds, they compress the layers of colored glass, and then they stretch it out in certain parts. Where the colored glass has been compressed, we're going to have lines. So we can use these optical molds in order to get texture on the piece. So a lot like this. And I'll hand this one around. Oh, you took it from me. I always do that. I usually drop it in front of people. I should have given it to you. That's okay. Took my joke. Keep my eye on you, sir. Yep. So you can see the ridges in that. We can leave the texture. I'm not sure if we have a piece up here. Yeah, here's one. So I'll pass these out side by side. These do not fit in your purse. They do not leave the amphitheater, right? We do occasionally give glass away. So this is where the lines come in. You can see them. They're very subtle. But we can use the same mold in order to compress the layers of color, stretch it out in between, and we get lines. But to create the basket, what Lauren did was drop down into the mold once, creating one set of lines, and then she twisted it in one direction. Then she dropped it back down into the mold and created a second series of lines, so we get a crosshatch pattern. Of course, when we think of a hot air balloon, think of a woven basket, right? So this will mimic that pattern in the basket. It'll be great. I love glass color. I started off as an art student in college, painting, you name it, I tried it. I enjoy colors in glass because they don't end up muddling or over-mixing and becoming a really ugly kind of dark color. With our glass, they stay separate. So even though she layered them right on top of each other where the glass has stretched or where it's compressed, you'll see those difference in lines and the color. Glass is a really fun material to try and experiment with. I'm sorry? That piece? This is a solid piece of glass, and I'm pretty sure, we haven't weighed one, but when they're made, they're about that much taller. And it's all solid glass. It's about, I'd say, close to 20 pounds of glass here. And it was all off the end of an iron, like what Lauren is working off over here. So it is very heavy. I watched the guys make it. It's really heavy, hot work. But this is the trophy for the Cheez-It race at Watkins Glen. So we've been making that trophy for 4 years now. And what we do is we have a mold. We compress the color on the inside so it represents the track. So if you come up here, maybe after the show, I'll actually put a little water on it. If you want to come up and look, take a closer look, you can really see the design of the track on the inside. So I'll put a little water on it. Since it's been cut through, you can't. It's got a little bit of a shine on it, but I'll leave that there. John, would you be able to zoom in on this, or is it in a weird section? Right here. I'm not sure if we'll be able to. I've got a great AV team, but that one's kind of in the corner. But if you'd like to get a closer look, of course, feel free to come up. This is a small crowd. If you want to see a piece up close, I don't mind letting you see that up close. If you have a question about color pattern, any of that, please feel free to ask. I'm going to check in with Lauren. How you doing, Lauren? Good. The puntee transfer. So if you see a show today, we always do this puntee transfer. Regular shows here are about 20 minutes long. So you'll see an entire piece from start to finish in 20 minutes. Again, this is a special show. It's the You Design It, We Make It. And Maggie has drawn us this beautiful hot air balloon. John, can you show the hot air balloon one more time? Yeah, thank you. So up on our screens, you can see what Maggie drew. And we are recreating this to the best of our ability. And we've already got the stripes and the colors picked out. They're ready to be warmed up. And right now, Lauren is creating the basket part. Again, this is a collaboration between Lauren Hunt and myself. My name is Heather. I'll come back out and see if you have any more questions. Yeah, question here in the front.
With the color layer.
Yep.
How did you melt it? Did you melt it on the spot, or
How do we melt the color, and how do we get the cane or the strands of glass? Or
you had a puddle of color in the
Yeah.
crucible? Did you prepare that in advance?
Yeah, no, what we have are, what the question is how do you get the color and how do you get the strands? Our furnace holds 1,000 pounds of clear molten glass. We start off with clear. That way we can put any color that we want on our pieces and do any color application. So you see we have our furnace in the center where Enon is right there. There's a pipe warmer and then a color warmer as well. And we get our color in glass bar. I'll grab an example for you here. And we pre-warm all of this glass color bar. We have to preheat it. Otherwise, it could crack and break. I'll bring this out too. If it's too cold, we can crack it, break it, and then it becomes kind of just like frit, broken up pieces of colored glass. So we preheat it to around 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This is colored glass. We chop off the amount we want, heat that up, stick it on the end of an iron, and then melt that down into a strawberry shape. And then we can drop that on top of a clear bubble and smear it down the side. So that's a color overlay. And that's how we got the veil cane started. We do not manufacture glass here at Corning Museum of Glass. We simply remelt it. We get, for now, we get our clear glass from a company named Spectrum. They're based out of the Seattle, Tacoma area. And we get little tiny chips of clear glass. We remelt them in our furnace. We put them in the same door that we take the molten glass out of. We do have a color pot or a color furnace on stage, but again, that is the color already made for us, and we're just remelting it. There's a lot of chemistry that goes into making colored glass, a lot of heavy metals, so we don't do that here. So we get our colored glass. See, Lauren is taking a measurement of the basket. We melt down all our colored glass. And we get our glass from Reichenbach. It's based out of Germany. It's a German company. There are a few, I would say 3 well-known glass makers, but Reichenbach has been around the longest. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Why did you blow? Or why? Why do we blow? To gain volume. So whether it's on the end of a blowpipe, if we blow into the blowpipe, the glass is going to expand and get larger. And she can also use that kind of force from the inside in order to shape the glass and get this cone that will be the basket or the base of the piece. So, yeah. So when you go, if you please see another show today, they are a great experience. I know it's short, it's about 20 minutes long. But if you, everything that Lauren does, everything that we do when we make a piece of glass, it's deliberate. So that includes the rate at which we spin the pipe. Something like this, it was a bubble at one point. And then the glass blower spun really, really fast, and it spread it right open. It's kind of like, doesn't it look like a skirt if I hold it upside down? The lady spinning. So that's one way we can get the scalloped edge, is by changing the rate at which we turn the pipe. So yeah, everything, every little movement that we do up here is deliberate. And every little thing we have, oh, thanks, it's a good view. That blue bowl, you can see the scalloped edge. Every single thing we do. And it's great because we got to pick out this, you designed it a couple days ago, so we've had a few days to really think about, bounce those ideas off of each other in order to make this piece successfully. And it will get fairly complicated here soon because we have to join all of the pieces together on the whiteboard, kind of draw on a plan of what we have, all the pieces, what order they'll be made in. But it's great because Lauren and I, again, have been working together, bouncing these ideas off of each other in order to make Maggie's You Design It, We Make It. Huh? I'm sorry? We took the design and we've altered it slightly. We're going to keep it round so that it has a nice stable base. Because this is made out of glass, we're going to have a glass bottom that's fairly wide, and we're going to put clear in between so it looks like the balloon is floating on top. But we need something stable on the bottom, and a circle is going to be so much more stable than a square. And then we could make a square, yeah. We have a lot of tools that we can shape the glass with too. We have cork paddles, so we can squeeze the glass into the square. We could have forced it into a square. But I think this will play nice, and it'll be a really strong, sturdy base. Well, there are a lot of ways we can mold glass, the corks being one of them. So we use a lot of wood to shape the glass. We use paper to shape the glass. We use cast aluminum, cast bronze. There's so many different materials we can use on this molten glass. So it's really, the options are endless when it comes to tools, unless it's like plastic. I'm not going to use plastic to shape the glass or anything that could really melt and put off bad fumes. I'm going to check in. Lauren, are you doing okay? Do you want the black stringers at all? Or that time has passed? Okay. You can still do it. Just be on the outside. important to check in with my team, I guess. I could just talk forever. Any other questions? No, perfect. All right, so Jamie is kind of in a waiting game right now. She's waiting for Lauren to do her encomal cup that she'll join together on the base or the basket of the piece. This will be nice. I love clear glass. I think it's one of my favorite things. It's simple. You can see through it. It's really using the natural state of the glass. So we're going to put the hot air balloon on top of this clear bit. It'll look like there is space in between the basket and the balloon. I think it'd look pretty funny if we just plopped the balloon right on the basket. We can use these properties of glass to our advantage. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, this is our You Design It, We Make It. Maggie drew us this hot air balloon, and it's a collaboration between Lauren Hunt and myself, Heather Spiewak. And she's, yep, there's our design. Thanks so much, John. We've already got the cane pulled out and cut. And I'm going to go ahead and start looking around for my color. Oh, perfect. We're going to make sure that this piece is going to fit together. So we have a pair of calipers. There's many different tools glassblowers can use to measure the openings of things and make sure that they really will stick and adhere to one another. Of course, one of these cups can't be larger than the other one. They won't fit together. Yeah, just open it up, touch. Leave those right there. So we have calipers, we have pie dividers, which I'll end up using. Should actually find them. So we also have these wonderful things. These are pie dividers. I can take the length of my cane, the pattern I'm going to roll up, and it translates it into the bubble or the collar size that I'm going to need to roll it up. But we all know pi, right? 3.14, or a delicious food. When we have this length here, it's going to translate that into the diameter that I need to roll up this cane. If you're just joining us, we are doing our You Design It, We Make It. We have Maggie Lindar's beautiful hot air balloon. The beginning of the day, we all, Lauren, myself, Heather, and Enon, we prepared this colored glass, this cane. This is what I'm talking about when I say I'm going to roll it up. We'll take these cold pieces of glass, heat them up on a plate, and then wrap them around a collar, which is a small amount of clear glass off the end of a hollow blowpipe. Then I can roll it up into a cylinder and close off the end and create a bubble out of these little pieces of cane or just glass. This is a way we get really defined lines in a piece. If you saw the cane being pulled, this piece here, this giant goblet, there's a lot of cane in this, and a special type of cane we call Zamfirico, so it's been twisted. We can take the glass and stretch it across the stage, but I could take these bundle these little pieces of cane, stretch them again and twist and get this pattern here. So again, feel free to come on up and look at the pieces of glass that we have on the stage if you'd like to see something up closer. They're gonna eyeball it, price check. Oh, everything about this connection has to be just right. The clear part that Lauren has and the lip of the basket have to be hot enough to fuse together. We don't want it to be a cold, weak connection. We want them really, really fused. This is going to, let's see, how old is Maggie? 8? This is going to an 8-year-old. So we're going to make sure that it has nice, strong connections. We had, oh, it's gone now. We had a piece about this size go to a 7-year-old, and it's beautiful. Very lucky 7-year-old. I hope she eats ice cream out of it. So we do take that into mind when we're designing these pieces, or taking the size at least. We keep the design true to what the designer did, which is Maggie. But we tweak it just a little bit, make it a little more logical and easier to carry around. So this piece will be a little thicker. Hey, you need a hand? You okay?
No, ma'am. Ain't my first day at the rodeo.
Got it. Do you want it here on this bench? Yeah. Right, so you really want to watch this part here. It looks like they're getting ready to join the pieces. Again, this is the Incomo technique. We'll get a very distinct line. Again, keeping true to Maggie's design. Uh-oh. We'll have to fix up that. Jamie made a picture. That's okay. We'll heat it up. It's clear glass. My professor in college was an advocate for it's not what you can make in glass, but what you can fix. So troubleshooting is a big part of our jobs. We've all learned through trial and error, especially when we go to transfer a piece and flip it over. The punty iron, which is what Lauren is working off of right now, that becomes very tricky. So as a beginning glass blower, you normally start off practicing caterpillars, using simple motions, using the tools and trying to get accustomed to them, and then you can graduate, start making hollow pieces. Any other questions so far? I know a few of you have just joined us. And don't be shy. Is that them? Okay. Yeah. This is the top piece and the middle piece? No, it's the basket and the middle piece. So if you look over here, I know it's kind of hard to see in the corner. Maybe, John, can you zoom in on the whiteboard again? If you look at the whiteboard, I do have the first section we made is that bottom, the basket. There we go, he'll zoom in right on it. So number 1 is the basket. Number 2 is this clear part that's going to support the balloon. And then we'll get ready here in a moment to start the balloon. Once they're done, we'll preheat all the cane and the plate in the design, probably just alternating the colors. And then we'll go ahead and roll that up, blow it into a nice sized balloon, and then encomo it to the clear in the basket. What's great up here, we have torches up here. We have what we call a weed killer or a fluffy torch. It's the torches that are going off constantly. Right now we can control temperature with them. We also have a nice hand torch. The hand torch is very precise heat and very extreme heat. So it's natural gas and oxygen forced together. And that temperature, that torch can get closer to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, but very, very precise, almost a pinpoint we can heat up. Now, they might use that to heat up just the lip of the piece, so that's really the only glass that's moving, and it'll become a really strong, tight connection. It's really nice to have torches up here. All of us go out on cruise ships to work, and they decided having open flame on the top of a cruise ship wasn't such a good idea. So Corning Museum of Glass and Celebrity Cruise Lines are partnered up. We have 3 ships with 3 glass blowers on each ship, traveling the world and blowing glass. So it's a really great program. In fact, if you exit out the amphitheater here, you'll see a model of a ship, and you can see where we blow glass on the 15th story of these 3 ships. Do you have a question or observation? Observation. Question or? Just testing. All right, let's see. Looks like they might go for it. Get a little hotter. So troubleshooting. What? Okay. So they're getting ready to do this. I'm going to hop back in, because once they get this attached with a strong fuse, we'll go ahead and start that cane balloon top. I'll make sure that we'll be able to get this plate hot. I'll do a little setup. There's that really hot torch I was talking to you about, the hand torch. See how she's really spot heating that lip so that they can glue the 2 pieces together using the temperature. Hot glass will only stick to other hot materials. That's why both of these pieces of glass are attached to the irons that we're on. I call them irons, but they're really made out of stainless steel, poor conductor of heat, so you're not going to feel any of that temperature unless they overheated the pipe. Now they're getting ready to do this, so keep your eyes on Jamie and Lauren. We're going to go through that encomo process. Here we go. All right, now we always break glass where it's the weakest. A couple drops of water and a tap. Jamie's iron should pop off. Beautifully done. What do you think? So a little nerve-wracking.
Better because I wiped it on the floor.
Got all the kinks out of the way. Of course, a lot could have gone wrong there. Right now, Lauren is only attached to the piece by the punty. And the punty, the stainless steel iron she's using right now, is fairly weak and a delicate connection. If Jamie had, or if any of them had tapped too hard on maybe the blowpipe where they brought the clear glass over, the whole thing could have gone crashing to the ground. That's why timing and temperature is everything to a glass maker. Now they'll go ahead and start to kind of finalize the design. Over here, Enon is preheating a kiln shelf so I can start to lay the cane down that we made earlier. Behind you. So for those of you just joining us, this is our You Design It, We Make It show. We chose a design by Maggie Linders. She drew us a beautiful hot air balloon. I'll give it one more second. We have this design here. Both Lauren Hunt and I collaborated to troubleshoot and how to make this beautiful hot air balloon. So we're working together. Now Lauren is putting on what would be handles on a traditional piece, but these will mimic the ropes that tie together the hot air balloon and the basket. So she'll put a couple on. She has to be very careful. We're starting to get into this piece. There's a lot of work that's gone into it, so she'll be careful about the temperature while applying these handles, or ropes in this case. Did anyone come up with any questions while we've been working? Yeah, way up there. If the kids want to design something, how do they do that? We have in the museum, next to the admissions desk, so if you exit and go back to admissions, there is a little booth right above the cafeteria. So if you go to admissions, ask them, you'll head right down the hallway a little bit. There's markers, there's paper, and I believe we even have a PDF version online that you might be able to download. Again, cmog.org would be the best way to do that. But since you're here, you might as well find the markers and maybe color. The more pictures we have, the better, of course, the variety. And we do this every week, so our live stream is on, I believe, Thursdays now. We'll do a You Design It, We Make It almost every week for the summer. This is our busy hours. We have a lot of people that come through upstate New York area, the Finger Lakes here. We have wonderful wine trails. We have a chocolate trail. We have a lot of home breweries coming up. Of course, we have the largest glass museum in the world, most comprehensive collection. We have, actually one of my favorite things here in Corning, New York right now is our Fragile Legacy show. If you go up to our rotating galleries, we have a huge collection, at least the biggest collection of Balashkas that I have seen. The Balashkas were a father and son team that worked from the mid-1800s to the early 1900s. So this glass was made over 100 years ago, but it's beautiful. It's immaculate in its detail. So really today, if you do anything else, make sure you go see the Fragile Legacy. We also have Market Street, where you can walk down, get lunch, that type of thing. Market Street, some of the first light bulbs, electric light bulbs, the prototypes were blown here in Corning, New York. So there's a lot of technology and innovation that is still coming out of Corning, New York. We share the city with Corning Incorporated. So not only is there beautiful, awesome glass artists and glass making here, but we also have a lot of technology that comes out of the area. Any other questions? And you can flash that. All right, I've set up the pattern behind me, made out of the cane that we pulled earlier. Enon is going to start heating that up very gently. Okay, all right. And I'm going to hand the microphone over to Eric Meek here. He'll start talking, and we'll get working right along and finish this piece up very shortly. So enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks for joining us here at Corning Museum of Glass, and enjoy the glass making. Thanks, bye.
It's always fun to see the You Design It, We Make It pieces come together. We've been doing this for years now, where we take drawings and our glass makers interpret them. We built this shop. This opened up about 1.5 years ago, and that's really allowed us to spend more time and make really nice pieces, take more time to do them. So if you came and watched a demonstration that we did a year and a half ago, 10 years ago, we do these pieces and they usually take 20 minutes, maybe up to 30 minutes, but really to make something complex, it takes a little bit more time. So it's great to have the luxury of time in here, especially because we have the other innovation stage open where we're doing shows more frequently. And we'll do that here in the afternoon too. Does anybody have any questions, any other questions so far about what the team's been doing here? I'm sure Heather introduced everybody, but Lauren Hunt and Heather Spiewak, they're the main gaffers on this piece. They're collaborating to create this hot air balloon. Jamie Perrion is helping out. Alora is helping as well, and Inan over here is helping out. Glassmaking is definitely something that takes a team to do, especially a complex piece like this. It's a real special media in that you really have to depend on your coworkers, on your team to have a successful outcome. No matter how good Lauren was, if she wasn't on the same page with her crew, they'd have a difficult time. But these folks, they've all worked together for many years, and it's fun. Once you get to a point where you know your assistants well, it's a lot of fun to do. I don't know if Heather mentioned or not, but this is being live streamed. So one of the things that we found is very often the people who design the objects aren't always able to be here, and so we decided, well, we have a live stream channel, we should just live stream. So hopefully the designer, they may be watching from home. So that's been a fun thing that we just started doing this summer. Heather talked a little bit about the setup she's doing to get the stripes on the balloon for the hot air balloon. So she's right now squeezing together a pattern of colored glass rods. These are called cane. So she's taking basically something that has the form factor of a pencil, a round colored cane, and fusing them together to make a sheet of glass, to make a solid sheet of glass. And what she's going to do is wrap this solid sheet around the end of a blowpipe, and then you have a tube, and you can squeeze the end of the tube closed, and then you have a bubble. So that's how we make a bubble out of a sheet of glass. So right now she's using some calipers to make sure that if we know the length of that setup, of that sheet of glass, we can determine the diameter of the blowpipe that we have to use to pick them up. So that tool that Heather has there is called a pi divider. So there's the circumference on one end and the diameter on the other end. So that helps us do the math and make sure that we can make the blowpipe the right size to pick up this cane setup. So Inan's job over here is very important. He has to heat the cane to a point where it sticks together, but he can't get it so hot that it fuses to that ceramic plate. He's heating that up on something called kiln shelf. It's a durable ceramic plate. And we want the glass to melt and to become soft, but we don't want it to melt to the plate. So you have to be very careful about how hot you get that. And you can see Heather just turned that around there. So she turned it around to make sure that it's even from front to back and side to side. Because the reheating furnace, the front edge of that, it goes into the reheating furnace first and it comes out last. So the leading edge can get a little bit hotter. So if you turn that around, it helps you get a more even heat. Okay, so Heather set up her pi dividers, and now she's grabbing a blowpipe, and she's going to make the end of the blowpipe the diameter that's indicated on the caliper there on the pi divider. Inside of the furnace there, we have a big pool of molten glass. There's about 1,000 pounds of glass in there, and I don't know if have you guys seen the gathering animation yet? Let's put up in the booth if you guys. So look at the monitors here. Here's an animation we made of what it's like to gather glass out of the furnace. You dip the blowpipe in the pool of glass, turn it around, and you gather the glass out of the pot. If you ever had one of those honey dippers in a bowl of honey, it's exactly the same. You dip it in there and you turn it around, and you keep turning to keep that molten glass on the end of the pipe. The glass in the furnace is the consistency, sometimes I say it's the consistency of cold honey. Like if you left a dish of honey in your refrigerator, it's about that consistency. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to gather out. The thing about glass that makes it tricky is that the consistency always changes. It's a really dynamic material. It's never the same material from one second to the next. It goes from being really soft and drippy to being hard and brittle, and it can go through that transformation in moments, in just seconds. So it takes a long time to figure out how to work with glass properly and how to use it, how to be effective. Everybody who's on stage here has a lot of experience doing this. I don't know who our rookie is here. Maybe Inan. He's still in school. He's going to school out in Kansas to learn glass making. But I think everybody else on the stage who's working glass, they have at least 10 years of experience. So it takes quite a lot of time to become proficient in glass. And again, I think the main challenge is that it's a material that changes all the time. It's not something you can sit down and come back to either. Once you get started on a project, you kind of have to work through it. All right, so there. Heather said she's ready. She's all sized up. Inan might have lost. Inan, why don't you put that Ferretti back on the end of that so that last cane doesn't. Hold on. Inan, stop. Put a Ferretti on there so that cane doesn't roll off. He just put a new one on the end there. We want to make sure that doesn't roll off the end into the furnace. There we go. So again, it's a balance of getting the right temperatures here on that cane. The studio that we're in here, this has been a glass factory since 1951. This is the former Steuben factory. They called this the blowing room because this is where the guys actually formed the molten glass. The Steuben factory continued on that way with all the cold working and processing. But Steuben ceased operation here about, I guess it's probably 6 years ago now, and the museum was able to take the space and make it into a modern glassmaking facility for demonstrations. We host guest artists in here. We do all kinds of great things. Steuben is still in operation. They're just working off-site now. There's a small local factory that makes Steuben now. It's not made here. So the capacity matches more the sales. So it actually is functioning much better than it did when they had all the overhead of this giant factory. How many of you have been to the museum here before? So quite a few return visitors. I always enjoy hearing the stories of people who were here when they were kids and they come back and they see how things have changed. The museum has changed over the years. This is the newest edition with the new contemporary galleries. But basically about every 20 years, starting in 1951, the museum has added on and grown and grown and grown. This is a museum that was originally founded by Corning Incorporated. That was Corning Glassworks at the time. And 1951 was their 100th anniversary. So they built the museum sort of as a gift to the nation for 100 years of prosperity. So since then, the museum has become an independent nonprofit museum, so we're no longer part of Corning Incorporated, but there's still obviously a big supporter of us in what we do here. All right, so it looks like the cane are set to pick up. Heather's got her post. We call that a post, the part that she's prepared, and she's wrapping that colored cane around the post there and setting up the color pattern there. So now you can see there how she's taken that sheet and made it into a tube. She's got a few extras on there. She's going to pop those off. Perfect. There we go. Picking up cane like that is something that the Venetians pioneered about 500 years ago. So it looks like this fancy new technique. But if you go in the museum collection today, you can see pieces made in the the 15th and 16th century by the Venetians that used that same technique of adding colored glass canes to a bubble. A lot of the things that we do here have a historical precedent. People have made glass like this for about 2,000 years now, so it's something that's been happening for a long, long time. The Phoenicians were the first glass blowers. And basically, I think if we brought a Phoenician glassblower here from 2,000 years ago, they would be able to pick up and work. There's not a whole lot in terms of forming the glass that has changed. The tools and the techniques are similar. It's great for us, working here at the museum to go into the galleries and to be inspired. There's pieces in the galleries that were made thousands of years ago that none of the glassmakers on our team could imagine how they were done, especially, out of a wood-fired furnace 2,000 years ago. So it's an inspiring place to work. I think it's incredible to think when you walk through the museum that most of the glass in there was made in a wood-fired furnace. We use natural gas today to fuel our furnaces, and the furnaces are running at 2,000 degrees. The furnaces were running at 2,000 degrees 2,000 years ago. Glass melts at a high temperature. So back then and all the way up until the 19th century, people were using wood to melt glass. The Venetians and in Scandinavia and Sweden, they used wood to fire furnaces all the way up into the 19th century. So if you walk through the museum today, just think of the amount of fuel that it took to make all these pieces. All these pieces that you see that were made more than 200 years ago were probably melted. The glass was probably melted using wood. So Heather is squeezing that cane together a little bit. She's going to squeeze using this multi-purpose tool. The tool she has in her hand there is called a pair of jacks. It's the tool that we use most to form the glass. You can squeeze and you can profile the piece. You can use the back strap of the jack to flatten things out. So it's kind of our hands. Obviously, you learn real quickly when you're forming molten glass not to try to shape it with your hands, but you get a good pair of jacks and they really become an extension of your hands. Anybody have any other questions so far? Yep. Why the different furnaces if they're all the same temperature? That's a great question. So the one in the middle with the door closed has the molten glass in the bottom of it. So that's kind of the beating heart of the operation. That stays on 24 hours a day. That has all the glass in it. We leave it on overnight. It's a very, very well insulated, thick thermos. We want to keep that as efficient as possible. So that keeps the glass in it, and that's all on all the time. We have 2 workstations with 2 furnaces. So these, the glassmakers called them glory holes. The reheating furnace where Heather is working right now is our main workstation. And then the one over here is sort of the assistant's workstation. And on a piece like this, you can see how you have seen how sometimes even to make one piece, you need 2 workstations. So that's basically the reason. We want to keep our furnace well insulated. That's purpose built for melting glass. We also don't want to reheat things that we're making over the furnace, because sometimes if you're making a piece and it has a lot of color in it and you screw up, it can break off and fall into the bottom of the furnace, and you don't want it to fall into the pot of molten glass and contaminate the glass. You'll see some glass blowers actually working over their pot of molten glass, but most of them use a secondary furnace to reheat in. Also, the secondary reheating furnaces, the doors are much, much larger. Later on today, we actually turned on our biggest reheating furnace. We typically use the one that Amanda's standing right in front of there with the camera. We typically use that reheating furnace, but we turned on the great big one today because tonight for the demonstration at 6 o'clock, we're making a bowl that's going to be over 20 inches in diameter, and we needed a larger furnace, so we turned that one on to use today. So basically, it's about scale and functionality that we have the different furnaces here. Looking around the shop, the other thing that you might notice are these big black boxes that are surrounding the shops. These are the cooling ovens. So when we make a piece of glass, it has to sit in a cooling oven all night long. It's called annealing, a process called annealing or slow cooling. Everything that you make in glass, you have to cool off very slowly. The thicker it is, the slower it has to cool. So we have a lot of annealers in here because sometimes we have artists come in and they make thick pieces and they have to cool down for days and days. So we put it in one of these annealers, we close the door, and we let it sit for days cooling down. The pieces that we make here most often cool off just overnight, and so this annealer over here is just opened up with the pieces that we made yesterday. So all the things that are in here are all the pieces that we made yesterday. So unfortunately, when we're done with this piece, you know, I'm not going to be able to take it and pass it around for everybody to have a close look at. It has to go right into the annealing oven and cool off overnight very slowly. There's an object in the museum that's the largest piece of glass in our museum, and for years and years it was the largest piece of glass in the world. Does anybody have any guesses on what that piece is? If you've been through the museum or been here before? Do you know? You know. You're just shaking your head. What is it? The telescope mirror. That's right. Yep. There's a telescope mirror. It's a mirror blank that's in our Innovation Center. It's a giant piece of glass. It's called the 200-inch disc. It's 200 inches in diameter. It's about 18 inches thick. And that was made here in Corning back in the 30s, just across the river. And when they made that, because it was really thick, they had to cool it for 9 months. So the glass that we make here, we cool overnight, but that telescope mirror blank had to cool over 9 months. And you might wonder why it's here, but that one's actually the dud. That's the one that didn't turn out. If you look at it, it's all broken up and ruined. But Corning made another one, and that other one they sent out to California, and it's still functioning as a deep space telescope on Mount Palomar out in California. So that's a piece of glass that was made right here. Corning, up until 1982, the other side of the riverbank here was lined with factories, and that's where most of the glass was made, was right here in town. So today, Corning still is headquarters here. They still have their research facility here, and there are still a few factories in the region. But a lot of the glass that Corning makes is actually made overseas. One of the main products that Corning makes is display glass for flat screen televisions and phones. There's a really good chance if you have a phone in your pocket that you have a piece of Corning glass in your pocket. And a lot of that glass is made close to the factories where the devices are made to reduce shipping costs. So Corning, I think last time I looked, still has about 40,000 employees worldwide. So it's still a very robust and healthy company. So Heather just dipped on that. Sometimes we call it dipped on it, or taken a gather would be more correct. She went into the furnace and she coated all of those pretty colored glass canes with a layer of molten clear glass. Anything that you see up here that's made with color in it, we don't gather that color out of the furnace. We apply the color, and then we get the mass that we need with the clear glass. So everything up here, the color is typically just a very thin layer inside of it, embedded in the wall of the glass somewhere, and not necessarily a piece of colored glass that was gathered out of the furnace. We have one furnace, and we only melt one type of glass. We only melt clear glass because you can make clear glass any color that you want. If we melted purple glass, then everything we'd make would be purple for the next 2 weeks. So we like to melt clear glass. All right, so Heather's working on inflating this bubble, cutting a neckline in it here. One of the things Heather has to know from experience is just how big she can make that bubble. She has a limited amount of glass here. Glass is really elastic, so she could take this much glass and blow it up as big as a beach ball. But you can literally take your finger and poke it right through it. Glass is really stretchy, and you can stretch it out really to an extreme amount. So she has to know just how much she can inflate this to make sure that it doesn't become too thin. She also is working to the scale of the object, so she has to have known how much glass to gather in the first place to make it the right size. So you definitely have to plan ahead. The whole process of glass making, even though this piece, they've been working on it since about 9:30, it's going on 11:15 now, so we're approaching 2 hours. But you think about it, in terms of creating something, that's not a whole lot of time. Like if you think about making a piece of ceramic, or sometimes I like to do a little carpentry in my garage. If I think of making a bookcase or something, it takes days and days and days and days. But really, glass is a sculptural material that goes pretty quickly. Even if something takes a long time, it only takes a couple of hours. It never takes days. Somebody asked me about this piece the other day. This is a sculpted glass child that an artist made who visited us here at the museum. And this actually took 2 days because the artist, he would sculpt the arms separately and the head separately and the feet separately. And then on the final day, he made the pants, and he attached the feet to the pants, and then he attached the shirt to the pants and the arms, and we put it all together. So even a sculptural piece like this, it took 2 days, which for us was a long, long time. But it's still, it's relatively quick, I think, in the grand scheme of things. So constant reheating, one thing you probably notice is that Heather goes over and over and over again into that furnace. And again, that's just a matter of keeping the material hot enough to shape. Glass is only elastic, it's only soft enough to shape in a range between about 1,000 and 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So if it cools below 1,000 degrees, it's solid and brittle, just like this window. Like at 1,000 degrees, glass is already hard and brittle. So you definitely have to work to stay within that temperature range. All right, so they're getting to the point where everything will be coming together here pretty soon. So the piece that Lauren was working on, the basket of the balloon, is actually in the pickup box over here, the basket. And what they're going to be doing is picking up the basket and then attaching it to the balloon that Heather has made. So I'm thinking they're probably going to transfer the balloon and then pick up the basket. Heather's adding a little patch on the tip of the balloon, and that's going to give her a target for the transfer here. She's going to transfer this from the blowpipe onto a finishing iron. It'll reinforce it a little bit and make it sturdy. The one thing to note is that the colors, when the glass is hot, they're always much more dull than they will be when the piece is cooled off completely. And so the vibrant colors of the balloon we won't really be able to see until it's cooled off tomorrow. The nice thing about the You Design It, We Make It piece is that this always shows up on social media. So if you're curious to see how it turned out, you can tune into Instagram or Facebook on the museum, and we'll be posting a picture of this early next week. The other great thing about the You Design It, We Make It is that whoever designed it actually gets the piece. So we contact them and arrange to ship it out to them. So U-Design It is something that we do every day here. If you had a chance to do a drawing, or if you haven't had a chance to do a drawing, it's the place where we do drawings and submit them is up near the admissions desk, where you've purchased your ticket to come into the museum today. So we do a U-Design It piece weekly, but the Flame Workers, there's another group here at the Museum of Glassmakers, and they do a U-Design It, we make a piece every day. Okay, so here we go for the transfer. They're attaching the punty rod, and that punty eventually will come off, but that's the point where Lauren is attaching that, just to orient you, will be the very top of the balloon when we're done. So a tap and it pops right off. Yeah, a round of applause. That's if something is going to go wrong, it usually happens right there. What you have to do is get the glass cold enough that it will actually break. So you have to cool the glass down into a really dangerous temperature range where it will snap, where it will break. If the glass is too hot, it won't break. It's like trying to break chewing gum. So she had to cool that right down to the point where the whole thing could shatter, right down to about 1,000 degrees. But she had a nice tight constriction in there, and she put a little bit of water on it and gave the pipe a tap, and it broke right around that constriction. So that's all about making sure you have the setup prepared just right, and knowing through experience the proper range to work in. So George Kennard has stepped onto the stage here. George is one of our senior gaffers here at the museum. He's been here for a long time, and he's going to help out putting this piece together and finishing it off. So again, the next task will be, after Heather has this balloon top rounded out, will be to pick up the basket and heat it up and attach it to it. And again, that basket is at a very sort of precarious temperature range. It's in the pickup box right there. And it's at right about 1,000 degrees. Now, if that pickup box is at, say, 1,100 degrees, that basket in there would stick to the floor of the box and it would slump over. If it's at 900 degrees, or 950 degrees even, if we pick it out of that box, it'll cool down too much by the time we make it to the furnace, and it will break when you put it into the furnace. So we've determined that for our pickup box here, it has to be just over 1,000 degrees. And at that temperature, we can pick it up and get it into the furnace, and we're pretty sure that it won't break. So we'll see how this all comes together here. Any other questions so far? Great. We do lots and lots of glass blowing demonstrations here today. Make sure you catch another one. We have lots of talented glass workers working on 3 stages throughout the summer. Also here at the museum, you have the opportunity to make glass yourself, to try it. There's the Make Your Own Glass workshop just across the parking lot, where you can go over and make a glass flower or a bead or a sculpture. It's a fun material. It's unlike anything you've ever done before. So Heather's getting that to just the right diameter. Heather knows that Lauren used the calipers on the very top of the basket to set the diameter, and they want to make sure that matches up so they can put the whole thing together. All right, so now they've got to do a little coordinating. Okay, so everybody cross your fingers here. We want to get that piece out of the pickup box, safely warmed back up. George is going to stab that, try to get it right on center, pick it out, get it into the furnace there. Usually when you do this, you hold it in the furnace, and you think you're safe, and then about after 5 seconds, the whole thing explodes. So, fortunately, George is safe. I think it's safe now. He made it. He reheated it. It didn't blow up. So now he's going to be heating the rim of that. Heather's going to be heating the rim of the balloon, and they'll attach it together rim to rim. It's nice to use these hot torches. I started blowing glass about 20 years ago, and nobody used these. But they've really sort of opened up a lot of possibilities in glass making to use those bench torches like that to really spot heat places. And especially in an operation like this where you want just those contact surfaces to be soft, it's really useful. All right. Getting close to the moment of truth here. Just checking the diameter here. All right, here we go. Moment of truth. There's steady hand, George. Nice shot, George. A little bit of water. And off it comes. It looks like when the punny came off, this is kind of undeniable, right? When the punny came off, it took the top of the balloon out with it there. But you know, I think isn't that how hot air balloons work? Like when you want to descend, you have to open. Yeah, so. I went to Letchworth State Park a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know they set off balloons from there. If anybody's from around here, it's fun to go up to Letchworth and see the balloons go off over the gorge. So Heather's going to squeeze this back together a little bit with some paper. One of their favorite tools is a newspaper pad. So she's going to do a little bit more forming on the balloon there. What you just heard in the bin over there is the glass shedding from the blowpipe that she used. So the blowpipes, we use steel pipes, stainless steel pipes, and the glass adheres to the head of the pipe when you gather on it, but as it cools, the glass shatters off of it because the glass and the steel, they don't contract and expand at the same rate, so as it's cooling off, it kind of cleans itself off naturally. So that's really great. We don't have to clean the glass off of the blowpipes. It kind of does itself. Looks like the team might actually try to close that opening back up there. We'll see. Oh! So that's why, glass blowing is hard, right? Looks like they might be able to save the basket part, which is good. They're having a little bit of problems with the top anyway, so it was durable enough that the basket was good. Let's give Heather and Lauren a round of applause. That was a lot of work to see it drop on the floor. But I'll tell you, as a glassmaker, you develop a thick skin to things like that. It happens a lot when you're challenging yourself. It happens, and that's how you learn. So thank you all so much for being part of this. We hope you really enjoyed watching that being created. Sorry it didn't turn out, but that's the way we learn. Thanks, everybody.